Здравейте на всички! Благодаря, че дойдохте. Thank you for your time and thank you for coming on time, most of you. So we are going to proceed in English for the rest of the show, as they say. A huge applause for Aric. He's going to be our spokesperson today and he's going to... I will let him from this point on talk.
I think there are some people are still on the way, and we will do our best to embarrass them when they come in. So they are late. So yes, my name is Aric, and I moved to Bulgaria around 3 months ago. My wife and I have been on the line for the past 16 years, and you see my last name is Jankov, and everyone is, when we registered to, first the process of being registered here as being a married couple was, that was hilarious by itself, but why do I have my wife's last name and she doesn't have my last name? So we both have each other last name, so just to sort this one out. And since I'm going to live here, and it just felt more natural to be part of the culture. I am learning Bulgarian, but if I would speak Bulgarian right now, it will end up with what I will order in a restaurant, which is counter. It's very funny because I never imagined myself. I was born in Israel, and I spent more than half of my life in Sweden, which is completely the 180 degrees with the Israeli culture. And then when I'm coming to Bulgaria, I feel so much more at home because the social life here and the interaction between people is very much Middle Eastern. And if it's the Ottomans that control the environment for, I don't know, 500 years plus, a little bit more on the Bulgarian side. But I always felt at home here. And when people tell me, oh, you're crazy, you're moving to the poorest country in Europe, you don't know what you're doing. I think the crazy people that calls me crazy are the crazy people themselves of not understanding the potential that exists in Bulgaria. And for the last 16 years, I'm walking around and I'm talking to a lot of businesses, trying to understand the culture and really the sprints I've done in the last 3 months. And I'm getting this mixture of feelings. I mean, there is a struggle. I meet a lot of people that, yes, Bulgaria is the shit and we can do things. And then I meet a lot of people, even young people, that are struggling, and they're struggling through the system, right? And it is what it is. And we try to structure this idea of Bulgaria 2030 because, I mean, we will see the crossroads that a lot of businesses are facing today. And I'm more than it. For me, it feels such a good thing. This is the first workshop I'm ever doing in Bulgaria, and I've been. This is where I've been for the last 23 years. This is the companies I worked with for the last 23 years, and I've been in everywhere. And I work with small companies and with Fortune 500 companies, and thank God there is not a Fortune 100 companies over there. But in the end of the day, what I realize is really none of them matter. And I think like what matters for Bulgaria is the people in this room, specifically for Plodiv. And in one of the experiences we are filming a documentary next weekend, and we are walking around. I'm trying to find a place I can buy a professional video equipment for a documentary in Plodiv. There isn't. And so we are calling a number we're finding on the internet, and the guy on the shop starts to laugh and says, in Plodiv, this is the place you go to see Tapet and Krechma. That's it. That's what exists in Plodiv. And I feel it's wrong. It's really not true. Okay, the guy was from Sofia, so obviously we'll laugh at Plodiv, but fundamentally it's wrong. And when I talk to a lot of bigger organizations, we try to put this. The main topic today is artificial intelligence and how AI is going to fundamentally alter reality. And yes, it is the case. And these are 3 very plausible scenarios that can happen in 2027. And I have a good friend, and he's talking about the next pandemic, when the next pandemic is stupidity. And when I hear that Penko is streaming this event to TikTok, I ask him if I should lower the level of intellect and speak in shorter sentences so TikTok can actually process. But if you really look at the landscape and the way technology impacting our life today, you have to wonder where society is going. And these are three very, very plausible scenarios that can happen. But I think for everyone in this room, there are, more important scenarios. And the reason we are talking about 2030, because we can think in 5 years steps. It's easy for any business to think in 5-year steps, like we're thinking in, quarter to quarter. But Bulgaria is going to take one of its most important decisions, I think, in the history of this country, which are we joining the Eurozone or are we not joining the Eurozone? And it doesn't matter if you like it personally or you hate it. For the crossing, that decisions will have a massive implication on every single business in this country. And when you look at the statistics that the majority of GDP in Bulgaria, and when I'm talking about the majority, it's 80% plus, is generated by companies that were established in the 90s, and they are run by a single person. Their kids doesn't want to have anything with that company, right? Nothing. And what happened when that person retires and dies? What happened to the company? And they established in the 90s, so they're quite old right now. And sorry? Or it will just go bankrupt, right? But that's how Bulgarian GDP is generated today. And add to that the pressure from the EU just look at the pressure that happened on the agriculture in Bulgaria from the rest of the EU. The industries are choked in this moment of time. Now, I always believe that a currency is an identity, and my personal opinion is keep the leva, but I'm no one. No one cares about my opinion. No politician cares about anyone of our opinion. The decision is going to be made. And the challenge is when you cross into a completely different currency than your entire economy is anchored on, is profound. And we cannot, Bulgaria cannot end up in Greece 5 years from now in the same place that Greece. And there are tons of examples of what's happening in South Korea today, what happened to Iceland, Greece, and there are a lot of other examples of this type of changes. And I think that one of the most important things that businesses should do now is try to imagine the next 5 years, regardless if you adopt the euro or don't, because the implications are the same. And the leva, personally I like the leva because it's the most stable currency in the EU. It doesn't fluctuate like the rest of the other currencies. It's a relatively stable currency. Now take all of the majority of the business owners that run responsible for the Bulgarian economy, and let them handle with the euro. The fluctuation of the euro are insane, and they don't have the tools to actually handle that. And it's not economic tools, it's a mindset, and these are strategic tools. And let's say Bulgaria decide not to cross to the Eurozone. Do you think the big economies are going to forgive Bulgaria for not cross? No. So we are fucked regardless. And this is, by the way, I do dress like this and I do speak like this. So if you have a problem, it's your problem. This is where we need to take a stand. And I mean, the question is like, what if we are becoming obsolete? And maybe it's not if we are becoming obsolete. Maybe we are becoming obsolete. Every day that come into that decisions to cross or not, or every day that come where you can see certain type of technologies replacing. Microsoft just announced that they are firing another 10% of their work power, changing them with an AI. It was announced this morning. We as humans, we are becoming obsolete. That's it. And the idea is we are not incompetent. None of you is incompetent. First, you were smart enough to come to this workshop. That's not incompetent, right? And it's not an issue of technology. Because people telling me, there will be a big problem for Bulgarian babas and daddios to adopt certain type of technologies. I don't think it's true. It's the context that you put technology in front of them. I've seen 90 years old using Apple Watch and an iPhone because it gives them the tool how to hit the golf, the golf ball in the right angle. It's how technology is being used and the context is being placed that makes sense. So it's not an issue of technology, but it is an issue of the fact that the world that we are coming from is not the world that we are stepping into. who we are until now is not what the future is actually requiring from us. And it's applied for the framework, for the habits, for the identities that we relied on as individuals, and more important, as business owners. All of our methods, I mean, everything is retired by time. Average age of a global CEO today is 55 to 60 years old. That's the average age of a CEO today. When they finish university, I mean, none of the tools, we think like this about education. We finish university, we know everything, we don't need to learn anything anymore. But things are constantly changing. I mean, that's how McKinsey and Deloitte make their money, because CEOs decided to stop learning. And we based all of our decisions on methodologies that doesn't really exist anymore. And again, it's not really a failure, but we need to look at it as an inflection point. And I'm speaking, I mean, I crushed and burned 2 companies in the past, but it wasn't a failure, it was an inflection point. At least that's what I like to say to myself, but you know, it's good. If you really think about it, moving forward, I think Bulgaria doesn't need the businesses that you are today, it needs the businesses that you can become. And that's the important part of this journey. We need we can share this presentation, right? We can share, so you will have access to it. We need a little bit more clarity. We need the ability to rethink everything. And I think this is the most important sentence in this entire session. We need the willing to rethink everything. We need the willing to stop and says, what am I doing wrong here? I need to take air and to rethink, and specifically Bulgarian banks needs to take that stop now and to rethink everything that they'll be doing. Because if there is a cross to the Eurozone, every single business is going to stop working with Bulgarian bank and just jump on German banks or French bank or Revolut in that sense. Because that's the reality that happens right now. So how do we stop and rethink everything that we understand about value, about leadership, about connections, about partnerships? Mainly about partnerships. I spent the last 8 years trying to come up with, I'm a system, I like to think holistic. I like to think in terms of philosophy. I like to look at the world from far enough distance. And throughout my life, I encounter a lot of management methodologies, from time to market, to EFQM, to Malcolm Baldrige, to Agile, to Holacracy. And there are a lot of these silos framework that exist out there. And I was missing a system thinking. And we think that automation is something new, but it's not. The dishwashing machine is automation, right? If you have a newer car, the fact that the car is braking instead of you when you did something stupid like texting while driving, that is a type of automation. The laundry machine is an automation. Hell, the horse was an automation that you moved you from using your legs and riding. It's not something new, but it's accelerating right now. Policy is maybe one of the biggest impact that we have on companies in Bulgaria at this moment of time. How many years it took we talked to BESCO a few weeks ago, and they passed a law, it's the digital, I haven't even had a deep dive, but they're allowing visas for digital nomads. In 2025, now we're allowing visas to digital nomads. That was something that Bulgaria, after all, has the best internet infrastructure in entire Europe. This is what nomads thrive on. But that's how policy is actually behind. And we see a bunch of microeconomic models that are, the brick dollar or the brick currency was just introduced, literally the paper version of it. And if you want to do business in Africa right now, you cannot use the SWIFT if you really want to do businesses in Africa. You need to use a brick currency. So, and Bulgaria it's a very interesting bridge. The Balkan is a bridge between Africa and the rest of Europe. How is microeconomic is going to influence? You're putting all of the energy on, let's see what the euro is doing, but there is a shitload of other markets like China, Africa, and South America that are just waiting for entrepreneurship power to come and flush it. Geopolitics, new field of research and development. And then on top of everything, we have these, different demographies, different geographies, new technologies, politics that are kicking in. And the most important, I think it's people. We're all individual. We all have different opinions. We're all coming from different backgrounds. I mean, I want to make a bet, right? I'm betting each one of you right now, 10 leva, that in front of you, I'm going to do between 300 and 400 push-ups. Live. Are you willing to take this bet? 10 leva each. It's nothing, right? It's like, how much days? You shut up then. You should do it with your kids. You should bet. Okay, so let's do between 300 and 400 push-up. Okay, so you want to count?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Right, done. What? I said between 300 and 400. 4 is between 300 and 400. Try it with your kids. It's work really good, especially when they're a bit drunk and the age of my kids. They're losing money. But that's the problem with people. We see things in different way. We interpret things in different way. Language is happenings between people because technologies know how to communicate with each other, but the language we use and how we phrase things. I mean, if I will tell you the sentence, summer starts with an S and finish with an F, right or wrong? Now you know it's a trick question, but you have to participate in this conversation. Summer starts with, not you. Summer starts with an S and finish with an F. Right or wrong?
True.
Why?
Because then it's fall after the summer.
Starts in spring and ends in fall.
Summer starts with an S and finish with an F, correct? If I would say, I mean, you said correct, but let's take on the logic here. If I will say the word summer starts with an S and the word table starts with a T, it's correct? Yes. And if I will say summer starts with an S and finish with an F, again, it's a great exercise with kids. Usually the answer is no, because we don't have the ability to have a logical deduction through a conversation. I will need to say the full sentence. The word summer starts with an F, with an S, and the word finish starts with an F. But I don't need to use, I can do mathematical deduction. And again, it's bringing it to the issues of people and how we communicate with each other, right? And how do we see the world? What do you see here? One of the series I refuse to watch because, I mean, I feel like my intellect will go a little bit down if I watch it. But what do you see here? Please, really, what do you see?
So,
You see geometric figures, right? What do you see here? But I'm sorry, this is also geometric figures. But you can relate to these geometric figures because they are brands. And I think this entire workshop today is about brands. Is how do you build a brand? Because there is a lot of innovation and invention in Bulgaria. Whenever I look, I can see that. But there is almost zero understanding of brand identity and engagement. And it's not a negative thing, it's a heritage thing. And this is where you're becoming irrelevant unless you start to think everything from scratch. There are certain things that makes a brand a brand. It all starts with a creation story. When I say the word Apple, everyone knows how Apple was created, right? That's very simple. If you say Nike, you know how Nike was created. If you say Tesla, you know how Tesla was created. You know how Levi's was created. Now, what's the name of your company? Yes.
Question marks.
How was that created? How was question mark created? With a question mark, right? How? I mean, I did this exercise last week. We sat with Volkswagen, and Volkswagen is one of the companies that had a lot of fun because they have a shitty creation story. You cannot just go and say Hitler made us. Doesn't really work, right? But creation story is one of the most powerful tools you have to explain why do we exist. And then it's the creed. It's what do you believe in? Think different by Apple. Just do it. By Nike. I mean, it's this phrase that capture the mind of people. It's the second part of what makes a brand a brand. And then we have the symbols, right? We don't need to go back. We just look at the symbols, the icons that resonate so much. One of the brands that has one of the most recognizable symbol here, it's actually interpretation of two other symbols, but the combination is great. Is happy. You see happy logo, you know happy. Great icon for this company. And then we have the entire issue of the language. I mean, when was the last time you said, I'm searching something? No, you're Googling it, right? There is no search anymore. You Google or you Uber. It's the lexicon that we create around a brand. And you can create it with business to business, and you could create it with consumer-facing environment. And then we have the habits, right? Goes back to happy, great habit facilitator. People create this, we go to happy on this and these dates, on this and these occasions. How did Starbucks, right, convinced hundreds of million people around the world that is better to leave home early, to stand in line, and to pay more expensive dollars for a shitty coffee instead of making coffee at home? How did it's brilliant. And today what Starbucks is doing is unbelievable. I mean, they know where you live because everyone is downloading the Starbucks apps because so they know where you live. And they actually, some of their offices, they are getting notification when you left home so when you come, it's to shorten the line so they know that you're on the way. And let's be honest, we are creatures of habit. How many of you are taking a different coffee every morning? We take the same coffee. Right? We do the same things because we are creatures of habit. How do you capture the habits of your users and create this engagement model that they are willing, because that's becoming part of the experience? Same thing with McDonald's, not here, but everywhere else around the world. People, families are going to McDonald's to spend the Saturday or Sunday lunch with their, it's insane. But the business model is brilliant because we are creatures of habit from the day we are born. And then we have the non-believers. And this is something, a repeating issue of all businesses around the world. How much of your management power you're putting to convince people to buy your products? But they are the non-believers. You don't need, you need to focus on your believers. You need to create an engagement. Apple only one time in its history tried to move people from, if you remember, if you will Google it, it's the I'm a Mac, I'm a Windows commercial. That was one of the only times that Apple tried to convince people to move. Don't put energy on people that doesn't believe in your product, because you can use the same energy and money to create meaningful experience with the people that believe in your product, and that will speak for itself. And the last thing is the heroes. So, who is the CEO of Tesla? Okay, who is the CEO of Volkswagen? Here's the problem. Who is the CEO of UBB? The heroes of the brand. Now, it's really challenging because it's Elon Musk, okay, recognizable, but he is the hero of Tesla, SpaceX. Volkswagen, no one has a clue. No one has a clue the CEO of Volvo in this moment of time, or the CEO of BMW. So you cannot have heroes, many heroes across industries, but the brand itself can actually become the hero. No one knows who is the CEO of Revolut. Unless you are in that business. But everyone knows that Revolut is the hero of the banking, the smart banking system. So how do you build these heroes? How do you build these systems? And I would like you to choose 3 of these ones. Don't go for everyone. Choose 3. And I want you to write, as it's a workshop, right? And I need to stop talking for 5 minutes, and take 5 minutes. And if you choose creation story, creed, and symbols, please write down what's your company creed, what's your company, who is your company hero, what heroes your company can become. Choose 3 of them and fill it up according to your business. And then you need to come here and present it, by the way. We said it's a workshop, right? So take...
It was in the advertisement everywhere, it says workshop.
Yeah, okay, yeah, perfect. So please choose that. Choose 3 and write it up. Same company?
Yeah.
Or you're cheating now?
We're-
Okay. It's not really easy when you ask to do it like that, right? What's the creation story? I mean, how many of you ever thought about really why did I start this business, or why the business I work in was started? Then I really want to hear from you, because you're the only one that raised your hand, and for you as well. Apparently, that was just a shoulder move. Have you ever stopped to think about Elon Musk's creation story? Why Elon Musk is driven by what he is driven? Have anyone watched the TV series Mars One? It's a documentary about Elon Musk's race to Mars. Good, then we can cover that as well.
Yeah, but how much of that is the actual story? How much of it is just narrative?
I can tell you, I have insights into his specifically story for Elon Musk and for Apple, and that's by mistake, not because I know them personally, but because of encounters that I had with these insights. I cannot tell you Bill Gates, the true story, or what the narrative is, but specifically I pick up on Elon Musk and Steve Jobs. I happen to have insight into both of these ones.
Do your insights there?
Yeah, let's get to that. Who wants to go first? And which company do you work with?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm here mostly with.
But you have been talking.
So currently I work in my family's company. I moved to Plovdiv recently. I used to live in Sofia, and I used to work in the IT before.
Okay.
So I don't have a creation story. I have none of this too. So for but yeah.
But what do you do?
What do? We import household items from around the world and we sell them on the domestic market. So we're like an import company.
Okay.
Sales.
And it's a family company.
It's a family company, yeah, but
How many?
this is that category that we're always going to die because it's great in the 90s and it's.
Yeah, but I mean, you're young enough to carry on the torch.
Yeah, but the whole business is basically speaking about models becoming obsolete. What we do is becoming obsolete, basically, because our market, the people we sell to. You said you lived in Sweden. In Sweden, do you have shops for what we call in Bulgaria the machine to trade? You know, this is how schools do this.
Yes.
But just for that.
Yeah, we have a small one called IKEA. Yeah, there are quite a lot of household
They
appliances.
say only this, or
Only this.
Okay, so it's probably an exception. But most of the countries they no longer have this. So, for example, in Bulgaria now, if you go, you buy it from Jumbo, you buy it from.
No, but let's step back, because I mean it's a family business, and I love family business. When it was started and by who?
By my parents, in the 90s,
Why?
because they needed money.
But because they came out of the communistic.
That period, basically, employment opportunities were very few. To make something for yourself, otherwise.
But you understand we are talking about the creation story of your company
I
now.
understand. It's just not my creation story, so I don't have it.
But in your company, and I think it's these dialogues that create the creation stories, but we don't ever take the time to actually have these type of dialogues and ask these questions. Sorry, go ahead.
My story is pretty the same. That's why I wanted to step in. I moved in Florida 5 years ago, and I joined a family company owned by my wife's parents. So I think
he has a much stronger creation story than yours.
Yeah, he has a creation story. Mine is just different creation story. Story is not the initial story of how the company started. It could be my story as well, because I want to develop the company. It's a story of challenge, because 95% of family-owned businesses fail on the second step. Yeah, when the generation comes in. That's one thing. Another is I want to make a good company great. Another challenge. I like challenges. That's why I have 2 daughters. And finally, I just I could make at that time any choice. I could work whatever, but I decided to pay respect to my elders and continue their doing.
And you guys need to understand how important is the communication of these personal stories, because that's the hooks that bring people into this entire thing. I mean, when if you're looking about the creative stories of the iPhone, for example, he really wanted to create a bicycle for the brain. Sorry, the entire Apple story, creating a bicycle for the brain. It was a passion of Steve Jobs to promote human intellect. And there is so much more engagement and international engagement with companies that has this empathy in their creation story. When I buy products for myself, I'm always looking for this creation story. And I bought myself many years ago, I bought a leather bag from a company that they didn't want to sell me a leather bag. It was a leather briefcase for a computer. They wanted to sell my grandkids a leather bag. That's why it was more expensive. That's why the quality. And they modeled their laptop computer on the same bag that their great-grandfather migrated with Ireland into the US and came with a boat, and they have the pictures of that. Every single one of you has this creation story that needs to find a way out. And it can be a paragraph on the website. It can be part of a brochure, but it's one of the biggest hooks that exist. And where you are not aiming just to hook people that live in Bulgaria, you have the entire European Union in front of you. These are the hooks that brings the people, and these are the hooks that enable you to understand who are the audience that you can actually work with. And we talked about, before that, I'm very curious about your creation story.
Well, I used to be a blogger, actually one of the first bloggers in Bulgaria. There was no such word back then.
In Bulgaria?
In Bulgaria, yeah, of course. I didn't really know what I was doing. And then at some point, I loved doing videos. Started being a videographer. And then from there, I had to move from home. And because of that, I needed some funds. And started freelancing on some different platforms. And then I figured I love animation, so I started as a one-man show or one-woman show. And then at this point, I have an animation studio, and we work with clients from mostly US and Canada. And
funny enough, with different size, not so far away from how Elon Musk started his creation story, right? He had a vision, and his vision was to build a sustainable society on Mars. That's the first thing, as a kid, he was very interested about. Building sustainable society, because he understands how humans are awful for the planet in a very young age. But in order to build sustainable society on Mars, what do you need? What did you need it? Before that, you need something very fundamental. Funds. You need money. How do you get money? You build a fucking bank, right? So you build a bank. Now we have the money, okay? What is the second thing that we need? We need to prove the case of electrifications, because there aren't any other resources than electrifications on a planet like Mars. You don't have oil, you're not going to harvest. So you need to prove the point of electrifications. You need to find the intellectual properties for the electrifications. How do you do that? By buying Tesla. He didn't build Tesla, he bought Tesla. It was a roadster. And you build the narrative in a smart way. How much Elon Musk is investing on marketing every year? Do you know? Not a single cent. He doesn't have chief marketing officers for any of his companies. He doesn't believe in that. How much money you say spending on marketing? Yeah, I'm looking at you over there. Right? There are different ways of doing different things. So we're able, okay, we actually build the case. People understand and talk about electrification. He started a race. There is so many IPs after he bought Tesla registered on electrifications than before any other time in history. What is the next stage? Obviously, solar cities and we electrifying home, great, it's all under that. What is the other thing that we need? We need the transportations. We need the tool to get to Mars, but it's so expensive to get to Mars because it's controlled by the government. You know that the Apollo 5, the spaceship that Neil Armstrong landed on the moon for the first time was never designed to land on the moon. It was designed and engineered to carry humanity to Mars. Landing on the moon was a utilization of over-engineered missile. It was designed to take us to Mars, but it's very expensive. And he's like, wait, why don't we use the technology? Because going back and forth, I mean, imagine that every time you leave home, you step into a car, you go to locations, you need to ditch the car and get a new car. It doesn't make any sense, right? So going to space is not a technology issue because the technology that SpaceX is using is no different than the Apollo 5. It's on the same line. It's a business model. How do we reuse the technology to create a new business model? And now we have the tools to go that. But humans can never survive the journey to Mars to start with, or survive on the ground. How do I build a refuge for humanity over there? Well, I need humanoids. But I already have the algorithms because I have an autonomous driving car. And humanoids are actually autonomous driving walking robots. Why don't we use the same algorithms to make humanoids? And this is what Tesla is taking humanoids to the market right now. That's the thinking behind, Elon Musk's entire journey. Now, this is how you need to think. How do you peel? This is the modular thing of working on these things together. It's not spending on marketing. It's decide where to put your focus, where to put your management power, and to create yourself this ecosystem of interactions, of engagements, of different models that can correlate with each other, and not just crash and burn when one of them is burning. It's not so far away of how the solar system is built, right? We have the sun, we have all of the planets floating around the suns, and what is holding us in formation is gravity, basically. And you need to identify the gravitational forces in your business that you constantly propel yourself forward. And it's not something you do overnight. It's something that you practice. And as you see, Elon Musk has this ups and downs. But every single great company is built out of understanding these fundamental forces and these stories behind the thing. I mean, there is, think about, who is your biggest competitor?
Vertex.
What do they do better than you?
They made smart choices.
We'll pick on that. Who is your biggest competitor?
It depends. My business is in 2 areas. The one I'll tell you is a children's book sequence, and all the other books at the market. So,
great example. We'll get back to that. Panayot, who is your biggest competitor? Every other magazine outside of Claudia.